When power mocks humility, sometimes all it takes is one unexpected voice to remind the world of true worth. It was a crisp Monday morning at Vardon and Company, a towering corporate firm where suits were sharp and tempers sharper. The office floor was humming with clacking keyboards, the shuffle of heels, and that familiar aroma of freshly brewed tea, courtesy of Mira, the tea lady. Mira, in her faded sari and worn slippers, moved from cubicle to cubicle with her steel kettle and small tray of paper cups. Her hands were rough, her back slightly bent, but her eyes always sparkled with kindness. She had worked there for 15 years, longer than most of the employees combined, but no one really noticed her anymore. That morning, she entered the executive boardroom quietly, where a meeting was in full swing. Among the suited attendees was the new boss, Mr. Arjun Mehta, a man known for his arrogance and obsession with status. It was his first day meeting the broader staff, and he was determined to assert his authority. As Mira quietly placed a cup of tea on the side table, Arjun wrinkled his nose. "Who allowed her in during an important meeting?" he said loudly, not even looking at her. The room fell silent. One of the managers mumbled, "She always brings tea during meetings, sir." Arjun scoffed. "I didn't ask for excuses. It's unprofessional. People like her should know their place." The words hit like stones. Mira paused mid-pour but said nothing. She quietly turned to leave. But just as she reached the door, she stopped. And in a voice so calm, so steady, it silenced even the air in the room, she turned and said something no one expected. Mira turned around slowly, her eyes steady, her hands no longer trembling. She looked directly at Arjun Mehta, this man in a $1,000 suit who had just dismissed her dignity like it was dust under his shoes. She said, softly but firmly, "Sir, I've seen 4 bosses come and go from this room. All of them sat where you sit now. Some remembered their humanity. Some forgot. But this tea," she lifted the kettle slightly, "has comforted every person in this office on their worst days." The room was dead silent. Arjun's face flushed slightly, but he tried to laugh it off. "Oh? So now the tea lady gives speeches?" A few people gave nervous chuckles, but Mira didn't flinch. She continued, "I know I'm not educated like you. I didn't go to fancy schools, but I know when someone's heart is empty, no degree can fill it." Gasps rippled through the room. The employees looked between one another, stunned, not just by her words, but by the quiet dignity with which she spoke them. One of the senior managers, Mr. Sinha, stood up slowly and said, "Mira Auntie is family here, Mr. Mehta. She stayed with us during the pandemic when even managers worked from home. She made sure our interns ate, our security guards were warm, and yes, she served tea even when her own son was in the hospital." Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. Someone else chimed in. "She helped my wife find a kidney donor when we had lost all hope." Another voice. "She's the reason we had warm food during the floods last year." And then another. "She paid the school fees for my daughter with her savings. She never even told anyone." Arjun's expression faltered. The air in the boardroom had changed from polished arrogance to collective reverence. Mira didn't look angry. She looked like someone who had carried decades of weight quietly, and for once, was seen. She lowered her eyes, turned toward the door, and quietly said, "Thank you for the lesson, sir." But Arjun, now frozen in thought, didn't say a word. The boardroom door slowly closed behind Mira, but her words remained suspended in the room like a truth too heavy to ignore. For a long moment, no one moved. Arjun Mehta sat motionless, his jaw clenched, but not in pride, this time in shame. The silence was broken by the soft sound of Mr. Sinha's chair scraping the floor as he stood. He walked toward the window, staring out over the city skyline, and said without turning, "A man is not measured by how he treats equals, but by how he treats those who serve him." Others in the room began to nod slowly, their eyes avoiding Arjun's. Later that day, Arjun found himself wandering the building alone. The sleek floors, the polished glass walls, all of it felt cold now. Hollow. He remembered Mira's words. When someone's heart is empty, no degree can fill it. He thought about his own mother, now gone. She had once worked as a school cleaner so he could attend college. She used to come home with her hands red from detergent and bruised from carrying chairs. He remembered how he used to pretend she was someone else when his friends asked about her. Shame burned in his chest. He made his way to the break room, the very place he had humiliated Mira. It was quiet, empty. A faint smell of ginger and cardamom tea lingered in the air. On the counter was a tray with untouched biscuits and a kettle still warm. Next to it, a small notebook lay open. Inside it were names, birthdays, and personal notes in careful handwriting. Ramesh, sugar-free. Priya, loves masala chai. Arjun, never takes tea. His own name. He stared at it. Suddenly, a voice behind him said, "She still wrote your name." Even after today. It was Priya from HR. Her eyes were kind but firm. "You should talk to her. Not for us. For yourself." That evening, instead of heading to his penthouse, Arjun went to the address Mr. Sinha had scribbled on a sticky note. A small two-room flat in an old part of town. A child's bicycle lay outside. The windows glowed with yellow light. He knocked softly. A young boy opened the door. "Yes?" Before Arjun could speak, Mira appeared behind him. Her eyes widened slightly, but she didn't say anything. "I came to apologize," he said, voice low. "Not because people told me to, but because I remembered who I was, and what I lost becoming who I am now." Mira stepped aside, gently. "Come in. There's tea on the stove." The aroma of chai wafted through the modest apartment as Arjun stepped inside, humbled. The place was simple. Worn furniture, faded curtains, a small table with two mismatched chairs. But it radiated a warmth his luxury flat never had. Mira poured him a cup without a word. Her son, curious but polite, disappeared into the next room. For a few moments, silence sat between them. Comfortable, not strained. Then Mira spoke quietly. "You know, I used to think kindness was my weakness, but now I know it's my strength." Arjun held the cup gently, nodding. "I didn't see it. Not then. Not until today." He looked up, meeting her gaze. "You reminded me of my mother. She used to clean offices, hide her hands from me so I wouldn't be embarrassed. And yet, I never thanked her. Never told her I saw her." Mira's eyes softened, not with pity, but with understanding. "It's never too late to see Arjun, or to change." He took a breath. "I want to help. Not as charity, not as a boss making up for shame, but as someone who finally understands." She smiled gently. "Then start by respecting every person who walks through your company's doors, no matter what uniform they wear." The next morning, employees arrived at Mehta Corp to find the CEO standing at the main entrance, not in a suit, but simple clothes, welcoming every staff member with folded hands. In the break room, fresh biscuits and hand-brewed chai awaited. Labeled with each person's name and preference, Mira returned to her duties, but with one difference. This time she walked through the building not as someone ignored, but as someone deeply seen. A month later, during the company's annual event, the spotlight shifted, not to investors or board members, but to the people often overlooked. When Mira was invited to speak, she said just one sentence that echoed through the hall. "Kindness doesn't need a title. It just needs to be remembered. And from that day on, it was